Good morning, everybody. Kind of an interesting room, the layout here. I guess I'm going to be craning my head back and forth to try and...
You got the monitor right there?
Yep, I see that. Thanks, Chris. We've been working, I guess I'm going to start with a little bit of history with the work that's been taking place in the Lake Erie Basin. When I came on 15 years ago with Fish and Wildlife Service, Dave Davies was still here with Ohio, and Don McClellan, I think, with Ontario, as well as Mike Thomas is still here, but not for much longer. Bob Haas was here, and in my office, I had just started my graduate program with Mike and his crew, and there was a Central Great Lakes Lake Sturgeon report that we were putting out on an annual basis, and essentially it was work that was taking place in southern Lake Huron through the connecting waterways between the Detroit and St. Clair River system connecting Lake Huron to Lake Erie, and the western basin of Lake Erie. So it was just an update on an annual basis that was just given kind of a round robin of the work that was taking place in the Lake Erie Basin in particular, and that kind of fell by the wayside as Ontario moved forward with developing a rehabilitation plan for Ontario waters, and then Michigan the same thing. So the hope was to eventually kind of circle back around, and after 12, 15 years, 2 years ago we started the Lake Huron Working Group. We have a similar report that is, I'm going to stand way back here. Getting a lot of feedback on this. Can you hear me from here? All right. The Lake Huron Working Group report is available online. This is the second year that we put that together, and we've kind of moved Fish and Wildlife Service and coordinated with the rest of the agencies here. And so what I'm going to provide is an update of sort of this first report that we put together. My hope is that we can continue to do this, and we certainly have buy-in by the folks that are working on this. I don't want to burden any of the task groups with other issues associated with their jobs, but we do have a lot of work that's taking place out here in the Lake Erie Basin, and as a consequence, I think there's got to be a place for this to put this information and make it available to folks. So with that, a number of contributors have been involved with this work. I think there's either 11 or 12 agencies that contributed to this report. It's kind of a cross-section of folks all across the basin, and again, looking forward to continuing to collaborate and work with these folks on this work out here. So why the working group report? Again, I touched a little bit on that, but essentially on the other three Great Lakes, there are working groups or task groups on Lake Michigan, Superior, and Huron that are already doing this, and Lake Erie, even though there's not a high amount of sturgeon necessarily in the tributaries, but on the respective ends of the lake, there are pretty robust populations still. So the other portion of this is increased collaboration and awareness, essentially moving people out of sort of these silos of work that they're doing, and get people to come together and talk on an annual basis and share information and successes, and also share the problems and things that we face. So 4 states, 1 province, universities, federal agencies all doing work. I'm going to highlight the 20 projects that we've been involved with out here. Maybe it was 19. I think one of the projects Mike Thomas sent me, I wasn't sure if it was a joke or not, but I went ahead and included it anyways, so it's out there. But the working group meeting, we had our first meeting October 7th in Buffalo. Dimitri pulled that together for us at one of the facilities that we had there. It was a really nice nature center, and it was, I think, a very productive meeting. 16 participants, 19 different offices, and it was, again, I think, a very productive meeting that we had there to just kind of go over sort of directions of what we were all interested in and where we wanted to go with this. So I'd be very interested to hear what the LEC would like us to move forward with. As we're going through this, kind of think about that as I'm covering some of these talks. So moving from east to west on the basin, I'm just going to kind of go through what folks have been doing. New York, DC with Don and some of his crew. Lake Sturgeon monitoring in Buffalo Harbor. They're doing gillnet set line assessments since 2012. 131 lake sturgeon have been captured, so they're sort of on the early ends of trying to understand this population that's there, taking sort of the general demographics of the fish information that you would expect, as well as pit tagging and floy tags. My colleagues with the Lower Great Lakes Field Office and the Northeast Fisheries Center, again, coordinating with their state partners out there, population demographics. They're doing satellite tag work and 19 acoustic transmitters, side scan multi-beam imaging, characterizing the habitat in that system, trying to get an understanding of what's available. The report is available online. I don't know if I said that early on, but I've got it's on the Great Lakes Great Lakes Lake Sturgeon website. And you can, hopefully we'll get the state agencies to kind of cross-link that so it'll be easy to find. But essentially, much more robust information about each of these projects and contact information and that sort of stuff. And with that report, again, it's sort of the who's doing, what they're doing, where they're doing it, and the time frame and contact information. So continuing on, the acoustic array in Buffalo Harbor, I think Chuck talked a little bit about this yesterday. Subsample of lake sturgeon collected during the DEC assessments, implanted with transmitters and pop-off archive tags, and really trying to get a handle on how these fish are utilizing the upper Niagara River system. Again, more demographics, or when we're collecting these fish, when you're handling so few of them, you try and get as much information as you can. We talked about this at the fall meeting, about taking advantage of the university folks and you know, bringing in expertise of other folks that can really utilize a lot of this limited information out there. I'm always amazed when I see the total catch numbers you guys present for Lake Erie walleye and yellow perch, and you guys talking millions and hundreds of thousands, and with the work that we're doing with sturgeon, we're usually talking in the hundreds. So to me, it's kind of a strange perspective to be working on a species when there's so few of them out there sometimes. So historic presence and absence throughout Lake Erie, that's some of the work that Rachel was interested in, and just trying to get an understanding of what was here historically. Much of that is just in a newspaper report and things like that, or tend to be from information from like a Bob Haas or a Dave Davies that had some insight from people that were catching fish at some point a long time ago. Shifting across the lake, this is work with Rich Druin and the ministry, the fall index work that they've done. 133 sites lake-wide since 90, 51 lake sturgeons, so relatively few that they're catching, but what is interesting is the majority of those are caught in the western basin near the mouth and around the islands area. This is with the commercial fishers in Ontario. Appreciate the fact that they're logging this information and making it available. It's really some of the best information that we have in terms of the geographic location of where the majority of these fish are. The DCRs, the daily catch reports, 650 DCRs or sturgeon reported in the DCRs, so it's a pretty robust data set, and 310 in 2015. The target for this work is the walleye and bass fishery. And then we're coordinating, who are the folks from, are there Ohio commercial fishers here? You raise your hands, anybody? No? All right. Well, the commercial folks in Ohio waters are going to be coordinating with Chris Vandergoot and the staff there. We're going to get them pit tag readers so that we can have complementary information on the U.S. side, at least in Ohio waters, for when they encounter lake sturgeon. They've done a pretty good job of that. I think there was, looking at the chart here, some early interest early on, and then kind of some trying to revisit this and get these folks back engaged with this. So the hope is to have a similar data set for the U.S. waters on the Western Basin. This is Jessica Sherman. She's a graduate, PhD candidate with Dr. Chris Mayer with the University of Toledo. And this is a project that Fish and Wildlife funded to gain a better understanding of the potential of reintroducing lake sturgeon into the Maumee River. Looking at she's putting together a habitat suitability model and a restoration plan for the Maumee River system. We're about 6 to 8 months out before that's completed. The habitat requirements for spawning adults, 540 hectares, so that's thinking of the life history of this fish. That system can support a lot of lake sturgeon. So 58%, 27% for spawning adults, 58% for the early life history requirements for sturgeon in that system. So we've got a proposal in to the Fish and Wildlife Restoration Act. We've got half the funding for a streamside rearing facility, and we're looking to get the other half of the funds this year with the hope that we'll be building a streamside rearing facility at the Toledo Zoo. They've come to the table with 100% match to basically oversee and run the facility for the next 20 years. So I think it's a pretty amazing project. We've got the ministry involved with where we're going to be collecting the fish on Ontario waters of the HEC, and ultimately the plan is to start with this site. I'll talk a little bit more at the very end here. So, but at any rate, some great work that Jessica's doing. Great Lakes Science Center, this is Ed Roseman and his crew, the lake sturgeon spawning and egg deposition. This is really tied with all the reefs that are being constructed, and I'll talk more about the reefs. John Detmers asked me to present that during the comment session for those folks that are going to be sticking around. So the objectives to detect lake sturgeon spawning activity and assess drift and movement patterns of larval lake sturgeon. And again, a lot more fishery type data tied with the reports and or connecting the dots with you if you need more information with who to contact for this, and that'll be in the report that's available online. So lake sturgeon egg densities in the Scudders, which is the St. Clair Detroit River system, used to be the Huron Erie corridor. I still like the HEC, it's easier to say, in the HEC. So some of Ed's work, Detroit River is the panel on the left, St. Clair the panel on the right, and a lot of where we're catching the fish is really, or the eggs are associated with where the new reefs are, which you'll see some of that right here. So Port Huron, there's some nearshore reefs that have been constructed, and then I have a pointer, but it's not going to work looking at opposite ends here, so I'll kind of move stepwise through this. On the left side, coming down the St. Clair, you got the Port Huron, Northeast Belle Isle in 2012. That was the first one that was, that one's the Northeast Belle Isle, 2012. I think that date's wrong on that, so my apology. Most recent one we built is Grassy Island, so that's the last one on the lower left in the Detroit River. That was 2015, and then we built 2 reefs, Point au Chien, and then on the St. Clair, and then the upper right-hand blue panel is Hart's Light in 2014. So 3.8 acres for the Hart's Light, 1.5 for Point au Chien, and then the Grassy Island Reef, which was completed in 2015, is 4 acres. So. And we've got another document that is the lessons learned from this reef restoration work that we've been doing. It's a really comprehensive document. I'm going to talk more about that this afternoon, but I want to say a little bit about that here too. Again, same thing, that's available on the Great Lakes Lake Sturgeon website. I think it's a really powerful document that really kind of takes you stepwise through this collective impact model that we followed to essentially get all this work done, and sort of the ups and downs of bringing a team together, identifying stakeholders, and getting a lot of work done. It's like I said, a pretty comprehensive kind of cookbook. So if folks are embarking on some habitat work in their neck of the woods, I think it'd be a valuable tool to either cite or get some reference information from. So Great Lakes Science Center continuing. This is Daryl Hondorp's work and part of the GLaDOS work that we're doing. We've got 240-ish fish that are implanted, 82 in the upper St. Clair, 86 in the lower with Mike's group, and then in the Detroit River, 76 fish that we have implanted. They've been at large for 2011 was the start. These are 10-year tags, and we're, I think, at 4 million data points in the system. And I think Chuck showed the video of this yesterday. I didn't see that. I was working on one of the presentations, so I didn't see that. But essentially, there's kind of a delineation between the movements of these fish. Fish that are tagged in the Detroit River, they tend to do some overwintering in Lake St. Clair and then move back into the Detroit River. Fish in the lower St. Clair are utilizing the river in Lake St. Clair, but we don't see this sort of movement of fish that are spawning in their respective systems. They kind of stay where they're at, where they're captured. And then the upper St. Clair, those are majority of those fish moving out into Lake Huron. So a really interesting study. We've got a couple publications that have come out associated with this, and again, more information if you want it, go to the document, you'll be able to get that. So other projects, population demographics. This is really Justin Chiat pulled this report together and this presentation together for me, and he's my go-to guy with this work that we're doing in the upper St. Clair, lower Detroit River. We've got a population of about 3,000 to 4,000. Upper St. Clair, we've got a population, we're refining that. We're doing external tags, and so we think that the numbers are probably inflated due to tag loss, but anticipating between 20 and 30,000 fish that are utilizing the upper St. Clair. So the juvenile assessment work that we're doing in the scutters, we've got the tile on the right-hand side, the photo on the right-hand side, and that's our gillnet survey that we're doing in the fall. We just published this information utilizing ultrasound to determine the sex of these fish. It's really been an effective tool. On the image on the lower left, that would be a male. It's pretty homogeneous. The sort of dog leg picture are the testes there. On the right-hand picture, you can see on the bottom would be the muscle striations, about an inch up from that. Right at the interface of the muscles, you can see the individual eggs. So that would be a black egg female. And with this, the black egg female, essentially we're 100% correct using the ultrasound to determine the sex of these. With the males, it's still a very high percentage, and the yellow egg females, which are females that are in development stage, are a lower percentage with that. Okay, Mike's work, him and Todd with the Michigan DNR, St. Clair, Lake St. Clair, 2,900 fish that are tagged, population estimate around 16,000. So kind of put this in perspective of what we've got going here in the Huron-Erie corridor. I talked with Rob Elliott, he's my counterpart over on Lake Michigan, and they are working with a total adult population of around 3,000 fish in all the tributaries contributing to Lake Michigan, 3,000. And we have 16 based on Mike's numbers for the lower St. Clair, 3,000 or 4,000 in the Detroit, and then a much larger number in the upper St. Clair. So it's an amazing resource that we have here, and it's something that I don't think we should ever take for granted. So minnow traps are kind of an artifact of trying to catch gobies, which we use for bait. It started out, we were putting minnow traps out there, and the first group of these that we captured, we took to Jerry Smith at the University of Michigan, and he's like, holy crap, you got northern mad tom, I've never seen one of these in the wild. Where did you get them? We brought in 5 of them, we nuked all of them, of course. And we said, well, we're getting them in the Detroit River. They're kind of all over the place. So this is one of the response to the reefs. Are the northern mad toms are utilizing the cavities associated with the rocks that we're putting down there. So continuing on, this is the joke slide that Mike had in there. He's over there laughing in the back. You can tell Mike's a short timer now. He's going to be leaving. I don't know if y'all know that, but Mike's going to be leaving October what?
21st.
October 21. So hats off to Mike here. So at any rate, Mike and I went out, and I had to pass this by my wife, and she's like, you're going out, let me get this straight, you're going out on a work night, you're going to be home at probably about 1 o'clock, and you're going fishing for sturgeon. I said, yes. She's not a fisherman. So, but objectives: have fun, better understanding human dimensions of sturgeon fishing, gathering first-hand observations of the effect of recreational angling on sturgeon caught with conventional equipment. So, University of Windsor, this is Trevor Pitcher's work. He's looking at stable isotopes and looking at the ontogenetic shift in lake sturgeon in the tropic position, and the pilot data information so far that they've shifted, the fish are shifting to feed more littoral in nature, so near shore and at a lower tropic position over time, which I guess I'll defer to him to sort of explain that, but I think it's tied probably with the amount of zebra mussels and quagga mussels in the system. West Virginia University, this is Tina Whitaker and Amy Welsh. She's doing some genetic work looking at the phenotypes, the migratory phenotypes in lake sturgeon. And her objectives: determine whether lake sturgeon differ morphometrically, and determine if individuals with different migratory phenotypes are reproductively isolated. And I think her information is showing that they are not. So, basin-wide collaboration. This was a juvenile index that we did. Collaborative effort with 8 different offices, and this picture is kind of a little misleading because we're showing juvenile fish here, but the index is really targeting 4 to 15-year-old fish. We're trying to establish an index of relative abundance throughout the lake, year class strength, population trends over time, doing this on a 5-year rotation. This is mimicking what they did on Lake Superior with Josh Schlosser and Henry Quinlan and their group. And then 13 tributaries were sampled, 8 to 16 net sets per site, 3 sampling zones based on depth and distance from the mouth of the tributaries. The mesh sizes were 4.5, 8 and 10 inch stretch, 500 to 1,000 foot length, 149 nets set, and no lake sturgeon captured. So a lot of effort, not a lot of fish out there. All right, actions and future directions. Develop and distribute the annual working report, which we've got out there. I've talked about a bunch. Points of contact on the Great Lakes Sturgeon website, as well as the report. Collaboration through sharing multiple protocols. Dimitri's using a gastric lavage techniques that folks are interested in. Pit tagging protocol, some of our ultrasound work that we're doing. Disseminating information, reef constructions, lesson learned document that I talked about earlier. The ministry rehabilitation strategy, and then looking at future directions, developing a database for sturgeon capture locations throughout the lake, Upper Great Lakes fishery trust status, maintaining those tables with the status of lake sturgeon throughout the basin with the tributaries, identifying historical tributaries and provide evidence. Citations were found, that's one of the things we're looking for, and then big one that I had Justin bullet here was prioritize areas throughout the basin for restoration. And we're, again, starting with the Maumee River and hopefully moving ultimately around the basin. So the full report is on the Great Lakes Lake Sturgeon website. I couldn't get the hyperlink to that because we're not supposed to use our computers in Canada. The DOI has policies and it's all very strict now. So I can use it in McDonald's in the US, but I can't use it in Canada, because Rich has probably got subversives trying to get our information or something, so. All right, so that's it.